Kimseye güvenim yok.
I trust
O
no
yüzden
one.
yani böyle
That's why I've been living in hiding for the past 3
kısa bir
years.
şekilde hayatıma devam ediyorum. Adım Mehmet.
My name is
Mirzali.
Mohammed Mirzali. I'm 29 years old. I was born in the town of Goychay in Azerbaijan.
Mohammed fled Azerbaijan in 2015, but even in France, he fears for his life. On his blog, he's a fierce critic of President Ilham Aliyev.
Azerbaijan has become a dictatorship. Ilham Aliyev inherited power from his father 20 years ago. His wife is vice president, his own wife. All they do is pillage our people's wealth.
In 2014, after a sham trial, Mohammed was sentenced to 20 days in prison. 20 days that he'll never forget.
Değnekle ayaklarımın altına vuruyorlar.
They beat my feet and sometimes my stomach with a club. Since then, I've had serious health problems that I'm still struggling to cope with. Every day it was the same torture and the same insults against my father, my mother, my sister.
Anneme, ablama, babama.
Mohammed says the police chief himself oversaw the torture. After 2 weeks, he reached breaking point.
They took me to see their boss, like they did every evening. He asked me if I was going to continue criticizing Aliyev. I wanted to save my honor, so I said, of course I would continue. Then he said, do you see this bottle? We're going to shove this bottle up your ass and film it, and we'll see after that if you'll keep criticizing Aliyev. Then he said, take off his trousers. Imagine the scene. They all ran to undress me. I said, okay, I'm sorry. When I'm released, I'll stop the criticism.
The very same chief of police has now been given a key post at the Interior Ministry, overseeing the fight against drugs.
Azerbaijan's government rewarded him for his torture by giving him a promotion.
We contacted the Interior Ministry for a response. They told us they would investigate.
Welcome to Azerbaijan, the land of fire, where history and modernity meet. Azerbaijan is a beautiful country in the...
NGOs paint a different picture. A picture of a country where repression is rife.
Azerbaijani regime is extremely violent, extremely intolerant to any kind of criticism, and it becomes more and more like this.
Yet the country is mindful of maintaining good ties to Europe, which has increased its reliance on Baku's gas since the war in Ukraine and the energy crisis.
They stopped buying gas from the big dictator. Now they buy it from the little dictator.
Thank you for supporting the European Union.
This is an investigation into Azerbaijan's prisons and the ambiguous policies of the European Union.
And this country is a member of Council of Europe. And this is the failure of Council of Europe.
Across Europe, dissidents in exile have been speaking out about the regime's brutality.
Torture is a system used in Azerbaijan against political prisoners and anyone that Ilham Aliyev considers an enemy. My name is Leyla Yunus. I've spent my whole life fighting to defend human rights.
My name is Arif Yunus. I'm Leila's partner. I work as a historian. We stood for peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and that displeased the dictator Ilham Aliyev. We both ended up in prison.
Leila and Arif are well-known opponents to the regime in Baku. In 2014, they were accused of spying for Armenia, Azerbaijan's historic enemy. They spent 16 months in prison.
They wanted to get confessions out of us. So they made the conditions unbearable. They put me with criminals who harassed me non-stop.
Arif was locked up in a secret prison. He suffered physical and psychological torture on an almost daily basis.
Look over there. That's my medicine. I have to take it every day. Every time I think about it, I get painful headaches. It feels like I'm dying. Every time I take my medicine, I think about it. Even when you try not to remember, you still do. That's how it is. Torture is like rape for a woman. You want to forget, but it's not possible.
In 2015, they were released following pressure from the international community. Leila was unrecognizable. This is what she looked like a year before going to prison. On that day, she was awarded the Legion of Honor at the French Embassy in Baku. Boosted by his military victory against Armenia in Nagorno-Karabakh, Ilham Aliyev decided to call early elections. As the vote draws near, repression is in full swing. In exile in the Netherlands, the Yunus work round the clock to draw attention to the plight of political prisoners. Every 3 months, they update the list of those held by the regime.
On December 1st, there were 254 people on the list. We're currently preparing the new list. There are at least 274 people. Every day there are new arrests. There'll soon be 300.
On their website, Leila and Arif display officials they say are implicated in cases of torture.
Look at our site and you'll see all these civil servants are criminals in power. Criminals. Nothing more, nothing less. Who is it?
It's the woman his father.
Come look, it's her father here.
The woman calling from Baku is the daughter of Tofik Yagublu, a well-known opposition figure who's grown used to beatings in the regime's prisons. He was arrested in December yet again.
What is he accused of?
A fraud.
A fraud?
Yes, a fraud, and of making fake documents.
They accuse the government of framing him.
They put money in his home. They said they'd found 5,000 euros. Those are the charges against him. The real reason is he criticized Ilham Aliyev and called for elections to be boycotted on February 7th.
Since 2001, Azerbaijan has been a member of the Council of Europe. The organization, based in Strasbourg, has 46 member states. It's meant to promote democracy and defend human rights. We seize the chance to question the Azerbaijani delegation at the end of a parliamentary session.
Excuse me, can I have just one reaction? Would you release political prisoners?
We do not have political prisoners. Maybe you have, I don't know, but we do not have.
Like absent journalists, for instance, or?
No, we do not have anyone. We have persons who violated the rules, and we are fighting for rules of law. Thank you.
And the Council of
Thank
Europe.
you. Thank you very much.
So just one more.
Thank you very much. You said one question. You see how popular.
One of the Council of Europe's official aims is to fight against prisoner abuse. It's the job of the European Committee for the Prevention of Torture, the CPT. Every 2 or 3 years, CPT investigators are tasked with visiting Azerbaijan's prisons and publishing their reports. The last time they visited was at the end of 2022, but the report was never published. Denmark's Therese Ritter was part of the delegation. She refuses our request for an interview. But she does tell us something surprising. Although the Council of Europe's member states are obliged to open their prisons to investigators, they can also block the publication of those reports. This Cypriot lawmaker is a member of the Council of Europe's Parliament and the author of a report on Azerbaijan's prisons. He says the CPT's paralysis is inexcusable.
Countries which are not complying with their obligations, they still do not comply even after the CPT reports, because they feel that nobody can touch them. The recommendations, the reports are there, nobody pays attention to them, life goes on. This is not the Europe we dream of.
Arif Mammadov blames Europe's inaction on Azerbaijan's influence on European capitals. A former Azerbaijani diplomat, he spent 15 years representing his country in Strasbourg and Brussels.
When I was Aliyev's representative to the Council of Europe, I was like the king. All doors were open. Secretary General was happy to see me. I could meet him anytime I wanted.
Once a diplomat, Arif Mammadov is now a whistleblower. He turned against the regime in 2015 and lives in exile in Brussels. He explains how Baku lavishly rolled out the red carpet for visiting EU officials.
The luxury that is offered in Baku is not offered in any other country. It's a royal treatment. With caviar, with barbecue, with young ladies who invite all the European deputies down with them, and they are so happy. They are like in paradise. Of course, caviar was not the most important. Cash was important.
L'Azerbaijan rimanda al mittente le accuse, se non di corruzione, quantomeno di essersi cercata di ingraziare le istituzioni europee con un atteggiamento non proprio corretto.
Halfway through 2010, the scandal of caviar diplomacy rocked European institutions. MPs were found guilty of corruption. The Council of Europe was itself at the centre of allegations. For Arif Mammadov, there's little doubt. Caviar has taken precedence over human rights.
So the Council of Europe was saying that, okay, Mr. President, we have a small issue. Unfortunately, we receive, complaints from the Human Rights Watch, from Amnesty International. They send us and they ask to do something. Can you please, just do something? And we can also return back and report that this is done, and you get points and we get points.
On the Council of Europe's website, we took a closer look at this action plan, an ambitious cooperation framework that says it aims to boost human rights and democracy. 3 action plans have been put in place over the past 10 years. Altogether, they cost 23 million euros. But how was the money invested? To get an idea, we called the Directorate of Programme Coordination in Strasbourg.
Vous devez parler avec mon directeur parce que moi je suis vraiment pas la meilleure personne habilitée à parler du contenu de cela.
But the director never called us back. We doubled our efforts, sending emails and calling Strasbourg.
Vous pourriez peut-être même entrer en contact directement avec le bureau de Baku du Conseil de l'Europe.
But the Baku office told us to contact Strasbourg.
I think the message is clear. Director of Communication.
At the Council of Europe, nobody wanted to answer our questions. They referred us to their website. After dissecting their documents, we came across the action plan's prison section. One of the stated goals is to improve the management of prison establishments and the health of inmates. And they detail a video conference with officials from Azerbaijan's Justice Ministry. Arif Yunus is surprised to see, amongst the participants, an employee from prison number 16.
We get lots of phone calls about this prison. Families tell us the detainees are humiliated, beaten and tortured. Look, Leila, do you remember him?
Leila comes across a familiar face.
Yes, I know him.
She knows him from prison. Dr. Kurbanov is the number 2 at the Justice Ministry's Department of Health.
On paper, officially, these people are doctors, but in reality, they're torturers. Instead of treating me and giving me medicine, they kept them from me. You're in good health, they said. You don't have any problems. It was that kind of doctor.
We asked the Justice Ministry about the allegations. They didn't follow up. Even in exile, opposition figures say they still live in fear. Since arriving in France, blogger Mohammad Mirzali has kept up his criticism of President Aliyev. He insists that some are trying to silence him, with the promise of huge sums of money, for example. But other messages take on a different tone. In October 2020, a man tried shooting him in Nantes. He escaped miraculously with a bullet in the shoulder. Police have ruled out any financial motives. 5 months later, he became the victim of a second attack in Nantes. The suspects, all from the Caucasus, were armed with knives.
They stabbed me all over, on the hands, legs, the hips. One of them put his hand in my mouth and dragged me by the tongue. Maybe he wanted to cut out my tongue or decapitate me. Personally, I think they wanted to cut my head off and take it with them.
Judicial officials in France have opened an investigation. Mohammed now lives under police protection. He's also carried out his own investigation.
I'm certain that Ilham Aliyev, Azerbaijan's president, was behind this attack.
Thanks to social media, he claims to have traced a mafia network linked to the regime, allowing him to identify the organizer of the attacks. He's suspect number 3 on this photo.
Suspect number 3 is given an award by Ilham Aliyev. So Ilham Aliyev himself rewarded the person who organized my assassination attempt.
We wrote to President Aliyev, but he didn't reply. Azerbaijan's ambassador in France firmly denied the accusations.
This person is here in France. He lives in France, and so it's up to the French justice to investigate, to make a statement and decide whether or not these accusations are true. As for us, we reject each and every accusation.
At the Council of Europe, tensions have been rising.
And let's tell our colleagues from Azerbaijan that we are not just a happy gathering of some European parliamentarians, but that we take our commitment seriously when it comes to...
That day, the Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly members voted overwhelmingly to temporarily expel Azerbaijan's delegation.
Never before in the history of the peace, this organization behaved in such disgraceful manner.
Three days later, opposition figures in exile gathered in Strasbourg's Place Kléber. 2 weeks ahead of elections, they wanted to make sure Azerbaijan's political prisoners wouldn't be forgotten.